So, hi everyone, I'm Pauline, and I'm addicted to collaboration. It took me about 2-3 days to come here all the way from Salt Lake City, Utah, in the United States, and just to come and spend the day with you and talk about collaboration, have conversations, right? How crazy is that? But wait, I know what you're thinking. Wait, where do you live? You live in Salt Lake City, Utah? That was Marco's reaction last night. So today in this presentation, I'm going to tell you why I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and then why you should live in Salt Lake City, Utah. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, I am addicted to collaboration. It's an incredible feeling, I think, when it comes together. But I do want to tell you that it's been a long and winding road for me. I did not start out naturally wired for collaboration. In fact, I'm extremely shy. You can't tell right now, I'm sure, hopefully. But I'm a very shy person. I'm an introvert. Yay, introverts. Love them. And so I much prefer having my alone time, right? It's much easier for me to be in my corner reading my book. That's why I love this photo. And yet, at the same time, I have realized over the years that collaboration, if I'm able to go through my fears and face my fears so that I can work with you and hear your ideas, we can create something amazing together. And that is worth it, right? I mean, it's a heady feeling. One of the headiest collaboration I have gotten to experience was at the Olympics in 2002 in Salt Lake City, which is a reason why I got to Salt Lake, by the way. And I think, when I think about how many of you did work for the Olympics? Here in London, okay, yeah, and you're alive, you made it, it's amazing. I think what the Olympics really have going for itself is two things. One is an incredible cause. At heart, Baron Pierre de Coubertin said, the Olympics are about the youth of the world coming together to compete peacefully. And it gets me, you know, when you see foes and enemy together, these young people at the height of their career, really coming together and putting on this incredible show, it's very meaningful. And so I think, I don't know how you guys experienced it, but that's what kept us there, right? We were driven because we had this, you know, our nation to represent, we had these young athletes to represent, and we had a greater cause, right? And then the other thing that I think the Olympics has got going for itself, for me at least, it has an unmovable deadlines. That opening ceremony is going to happen. Whether we collaborate or not, we're going to make it happen, right? I don't have that in my day-to-day business. My business is ongoing. It's a series of deadlines, you know, and clients moving deadlines, you know. So what happens after the Olympics, right? I think there's a Zen saying, you know, what happens after enlightenment? The dishes, right? So that's what happens after the Olympics. You're pretty much back to your regular old boring work, right? And for me, that meant working for a branding agency with a small team of incredibly talented people. And then, you know, like you guys, we decided that we needed to evolve, we needed to grow, and we had to embrace the digital age. And so we merged with a group called Struck, a digital age group that had already merged with a content group. So there we were, 3 people, 3 offices in the West Coast. And what I noticed is that on paper, it was textbook. But the reality of people coming together and working together was very different. And I'm going to talk about that today. Some of the realities, some of the tools, the levers that we experimented with. Because it's not a perfect science, right? So collaboration, when it works, it feels a little bit like this. Have you guys seen this movie? I love it. I don't know if you've noticed, a lot of the biggest blockbusters are about collaboration, right? The Avengers, X-Men. It's like, you know, we're all like these superheroes with our weaknesses and our strength, and then when we come together, we get to save the world. What I love about these guys, this is Guardians of the Galaxy, is that they're kind of the losers of the galaxy, actually, when they start out. No one knows them. This guy is a thief, this girl is a criminal, this guy is a tree, and the other one is a maniac. And then there's a raccoon, right? You've seen that? There's a weird raccoon. I don't know what that is. But anyway, it feels very superpower-ish, right? Have you had that experience coming together? You're like, oh, we don't know how we did it, but boy, you know, we just saved the world. It's amazing. But I think if you ask people on your team, and especially the people who are actually delivering, it feels more like this. This is Tom Cruise in Edge of Tomorrow. Thank you, Marco. This is Tom Cruise in Edge of Tomorrow. And in this movie, in this particular scene, he was dubbed as a deserter. And he got dropped into this D-Day battle against aliens. And actually, the D-Day happens out of London, so you guys should go see that movie. And because he's dubbed a traitor and a deserter, his team pretty much wants him to die. They're like, we're not bothering with you, you're a dead corpse, right? He has no training, and he has no idea how, you know, he has a good sense of the strategy, but he has no idea how to execute, right? And essentially, he's going to die in the next 5 minutes. Fortunately for him, he gets to live the same day over and over again and learn. But I think what I'm trying to say here is that on the ground, it can get pretty chaotic and pretty disconnected. You know, you don't know what's going on. So taking a step back, I think Dale mentioned it a little bit, and I think we will all talk about this, but very briefly, humor me as I put a little context in this collaboration. You guys heard of Gordon E. Moore? No? Moore's Law? No. Yeah? I like it. Moore's Law, Gordon E. Moore, co-founder of Intel, predicted back in 1965 that the number of transistors in the microchip processor would double every 2 years. Now imagine what that means. And so when you look, and he was right, when you look at the curve of innovation and how these transistors doubled and the processing power doubled, it starts in the 60s and you have this nice curve. And then in the last 10 years, it goes straight up. Straight up. It's unbelievable. Every year, every 2 years, there's a new innovation. I have a pacemaker. I have a pacemaker, and for me, I got it on in 2008. And it was this size, the size of an apricot pit. I'm told now it's the size of a half of a toothpick, right? So it's moving rapidly. It used to be that you have one of these innovations every 100 years. You have them, you know, every 6 months. So what does this mean for us? You know, we've got disruptors out of nowhere. I know some of you are in the hotel business. What do you do about Airbnb? What does that mean, right? You just no idea, right? Our jobs. Microsoft, July 14, did you guys see this news? 18,000 people laid off worldwide. That's huge. I think these 18 people were very good. 18,000 people were very good maybe 5 years ago, and all of a sudden, no longer needed. So contrast the speed of this innovation cycle with our brain. Hello? Our brain is not evolving much more than what it is. These two books are awesome if you want some reading material, if you're introverted and you love to read. But essentially, both of these books talk about, we have this old brain back here, and then we've got this newer brain that was developed later, the prefrontal cortex. And the old brain is the one that is emotional, reactive, protective, you know, thinks about death, essentially, and is trying to protect you. And then this new one is the slow thinking, the prefrontal cortex. System 1 and System 2 is what they call it, is the one that really allows you to do a lot of thinking. I was joking with Marco yesterday that I think the email, like when you answer the email, it's System 1 that gets activated, right? There's no big thinking happening or big creativity happening. So for today, collaboration really has to be about these things: creativity, problem solving, rapid adaptation, evolution. Or in the delightful words of Bob Dylan, as told by Steve Jobs, if you're not busy being born, you're busy dying. It's very friendly. I like it. All right, so the enemy. I want to talk very briefly about some of the things that have been studied on what goes against or what you need to be aware of when you're collaborating. And this is a fascinating little case studies. I'm going to try to go through it really fast, but it's set in the 40s. This is a true story in western United States. And it's about smoke jumpers. Do you know what smoke jumpers are? They're essentially these guys that go in and fight a fire. They're incredible. There hadn't been any death of smoke jumpers in the past 50 years that the smoke jumpers had been set up. On this day, routine fire starts. They assemble 16 volunteers. Some of them had worked together, some of them hadn't. This is key. They appoint a leader, his name is Dodge, and they go off. In the plane, it's very bumpy. It takes them 3 times before they drop the men. So already things are just a little bit, making people a little bit nervous. And the leader, Dodge, hurts his knee. So they see him limping. This is also key. Then he tells his men, have lunch. He does not have lunch with them. This is also key. And then he goes off and devises a strategy for fighting this fire. Then he comes back, dispatches his men, and they go. He himself has dinner, so they're like, well, it can't be that bad. He's having dinner. Then he regroups with them, and all of a sudden he realizes this fire is out of control. And he quickly devises a strategy because he knows what he's doing, and he tells his men, follow me, we're going to run up this ridge, right? And they're like looking at him, and they're like, there's a river down here. Why should we do that, right? So they don't believe him. They don't trust him. They don't know what he's up to, but he knows, right? So he goes up, and the fire is literally catching up with these men. So system 1 is in full on activated. When he goes through, then he starts a fire in front of him. So they go, crazy, right? What is he doing? He starts this fire, he steps through the fire and slides 30 feet and asks his men to join him. None of them does. None of them does, right? They keep on going, and essentially of the 16 men, only 3 survived. The leader and 2 who happened to be lucky enough to jump into a crevice. So it's kind of a tragic story and kind of a downer. Sorry about that. Obviously, we talked about some of the contradicting signals, confusion. You've got a lot of emotions going on, a lot of fear. But the bottom line is they don't trust him. So what did Oxford say? This is an Oxford case study. They say in any kind of collaboration, you got to take this into consideration. You have a diversity of stakeholders. How many of you have started a project and asked, who are the stakeholders? And you're like, well, there's this guy and this guy. And then, a week later, all of a sudden, there's all these stakeholders coming out of the woodworks. It's like, where did you come from? So, you've got a plurality of stakeholders. But then each of them have a difference in perspective, expertise, and value. And I would add almost language and assumption. There is so much going on in everybody's brain, right? And then this I love, scarcity of time and resources. Hello, when is the last time you had a project with plenty of time and plenty of money? And then the unknown unknown, okay, humor me, Donald Rumsfeld, I love this. There's the known unknown and the unknown unknown. So this stuff we don't even know, we don't know. So these are the 4 things. These are the 4 things that you have to watch out when you're collaborating. So I'm a geek, so I take these patterns very, very, very seriously, and I go, okay, look at the Ebola outbreak, which is gross. Do not Google Ebola ever. Just don't. It's really tragic, but as I was thinking, as I was listening to the radio, going to work every day for the past 2 months, I was like, look at them. The diversity of stakeholders is unbelievable, right? There's the World Health Organization, there's the NGOs, the government, there's Doctors Without Borders, there's the researchers, there's the doctors, there's the patients, there's the family of the patients, there's the communities, and they all have a different perspective, right? And they need to collaborate. They need to come together to figure this thing out because they are running out of time. And who is paying for this, by the way? How is the budget working? And then the unknown unknown, they don't even know if this virus is not going to evolve. So it's crazy. It's crazy. But the model works. So I do believe whenever I approach a collaboration project, I try to take all of these things into consideration. I want to tell a quick story about Ed Catmull's Creativity Inc. Great book. But it's about fires when you least expected it, which is essentially that unknown unknown. This is for Toy Story 2. They were under tremendous pressure, And they had been shooting for 9 months and had this great footage. And then all of a sudden they realized somebody had a piece of code that it essentially was erasing those 9 months of footage. Very scary, right? So what did Ed do, which I think is the beginning of the solution? He called the entire Pixar team together in one room, and he openly and transparently and plainly said, here is where we're at. We are losing, we have lost 9 months of work. This is going to cost us billions of dollars, and it's going to take us 2 years to recover from that. What did his team do? They began to problem solve. They were essentially empowered to come up with a solution. It was an even playing field, and they did. One woman had been on maternity leave, and she said, well, I've been getting the dailies every day, and why don't we look at my hard drive? And there it was. I think they recovered about 90%. So it's an incredible tool, this way of communicating. So to finish up with the case studies, we're talking about net-centric teams, which is essentially the Navy SEALs, these teams that are quick to react, they're smart, they're productive, they're creative, they're tightly networked. And I think what I'm saying here today is that I think that's what you need. We all need that, right? Because it's moving so fast. We need teams that are just empowered to move, right? And what they're saying is that, and this is really, I love this, to find this from Oxford, it's about hearts and mind. Crucial decisions are about not only the mind, the KPI is the reason, but your heart. Are you involved? Are you there? Authority is always negotiated, so just get that out of the way. Did you ever see the movie with George Clooney, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's like these 3 guys that are escaping jail, and they're in the middle of this run, and George Clooney, charismatic, talks, and the other 2 look at him, they're like, who elected you the leader of this outfit, right? And you're going to experience that, whether you're a manager or not a manager, whether you just speak up and you've got something, people are going to question your authority. There's going to be coalitions. Again, I'm always amazed, there's 5 partners that strike, and there's always 2 against 3, or 3 against 2, or 4 against 1. I mean, this is never-ending coalitions, and you'll feel that in your team. And Be Greedy is ubiquitous, right? You think you're communicating, you think you're doing such a great job, but people have their own perspective. And then communication is crucial. We talked about that. Actions require more than authority. So when those men were running up and their leader was telling them, come with me, they did not execute on his order, right? Because of the hearts and mind. I was talking to Mark about this. I love this. And to Bobby as well. If you overemphasize any aspect of your organization, whether it's too much emphasis on the individual, too much emphasis on process, too much emphasis on strategy, too much emphasis on tactical and executional thing, you're going to have an imbalance. What we're saying here is that you kind of need all of it. You need that ability to be strategic and execute flawlessly. You need to empower individual, and you need process. You need it all. And that's the key to collaboration, is that it's an integrated approach, right? Quick little piece about motivation, since it's about hearts and mind. Love this book, Drive. Great animation. But essentially what he's saying is that people are not motivated by money. Once you get paid enough, what motivates you? What motivates you to give it your all is this autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And this we took very much to heart. This is what people want. This is how people are going to succeed. This is how people are going to make crucial decisions. So what works? This is from MIT, and I love this so much. MIT, right? The first 2 ones are sense making and relating. What you have to do is make sense. Make common sense part of your organization, because you never know who's going to make a decision when, right? You can't control it all. And then relating, that's why I said the party, right? Once you've broken bread and got drunk with your coworkers, you can trust them because you know they got your back, right? I'm not saying that's what you should do, but and then visioning and inventing, which is creating a common future and coming up with new ways to execute on that future. But I thought that was really meaningful and the order in which it's provided. So in simple work, in a simple way, we can only create successful collaboration if everyone on the team understands what success truly is and they're fired up about it. So I'm going to talk about some of the experimentation we've done at Struck. 4-step process, which I make it sound like it was so organized and we were so amazing, which we were not. We stumbled our way into it. But a common future, a common culture, getting the most out of limited resources and valuing diversity. So I mentioned Struck. I was just kind of amazed, you know, when day one, we all got together, popped the champagne, everyone's so happy, and then everyone went back to their desk and did things exactly the way they used to do them. You know, because they had worked with each other and they didn't know each other, and system one was getting activated. So one of the things we set out to do is a common future and really defining that. We actually got the help of a group called Prometheus, Terrible Design Ability. This book is great, Winning in Fast Time. And the way they talk about strategy, and I love this, is a plan for success. We define what success is and we got a plan, because otherwise, if you don't have a clear definition of success, how do you know you'll get there? If you don't have a plan to get there, you know, you're pretty much leaving it to chance, right? So it's about alignment. When I look at these arrows, I think about my team. Talented people. Everyone's super smart, super creative, just unbelievable people, all ages. But they're not going in the same direction, and it breaks my heart. We don't have momentum, right? And who has money? Enough money for people to wander their way around. We don't. So the arrows have to all point in the same direction. This is really interesting. So we're talking about a future, right? We're creating a future together. What these guys kept on asking us was, will you be happy? Why would they ask that, right? Because they know it's about hearts and mind. If you're creating something that just doesn't fire you up, you're probably not going to get there. Future, not past. I love this. We were talking about Walt Disney with Bobby. You know, if you had asked, Walt Disney to kind of use the past, design cartoons and project that into the future, we would have maybe a Pixar, a better animation studio, but he had a much bigger vision, right? What I like about thinking about the future is that, first of all, it gets rid of the baggage, right? Like, let's let go of the baggage. But the more important piece about this is that I talked about this rapid evolution. You don't know what the future holds. You got to move fast. You got to pretty much proactively try to predict what the future is going to be and be there and meet it. Now, strategy is our day job. It doesn't matter who you are in the organization. All of us are here to execute on this strategic plan. Okay, this is the most exciting part of the presentation. So I talked about communication, you know, the email drama. Are people really understanding? Do people really understand what's going on? And we've just been experimenting. This is from Agency Agile, an agile process, which is something we do in the digital world. But we've been experimenting with these cards, and essentially brainstorming and strategizing together in what we call open planning. And I don't know if you've heard of the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic way of communicating. You guys know about this? So the idea is that if we have different ways of processing information. Some of us need to see it, some of us need to hear it, and some of us need to move with it, essentially to just work with it and do it, right? And all of us are a combination of those three. But this is, when your HR team sends a long email and your creative team goes, what email? That's because probably they're visual. They need a beautiful, graphical interface to kind of understand it. But the other part that's exciting about open planning, this is our team doing our strategic plan together, is ownership. They're part of it. They're working with these cards. So the VAK, what makes it very good as a communication tool is that you write it on the card, so it's good for the visuals. Then you talk about it, it's good for the auditory. And then you move it around. You brainstorm, so it's good for the kinesthetics in us. But this allows for buy-in and ownership. Everyone understands the future picture. Everyone understands it, like deeply, really. Not just nodding your face and going, I don't know. So it's open. It allows for diversity. It allows for quick conflicts resolution. Wouldn't you want to know if one of your team was like not on board with something, like up front rather than at the end, right? Or in the middle of the whole thing. And then communication, I talked about that. Okay, I think I'm running long. This is for Marco. So the last thing on developing a strategy through open planning is KPIs. So we talked about that, how will we know we got there? And there's always an emotional component. There's always the high Ds, the people who are very driven and very emotional. They go, it doesn't feel like we're there. Well, let's put some metrics around it, some strategic measurements, some ways of knowing whether we got there or not. And then let's pop the champagne when we did got there, right? This is what annoys me. We never celebrate. When is the party? All right, number 2, common culture. So we talked about the trust, the hearts and mind. Why did the men not follow their leader, right? We talked about the importance of relating, and this is going to sound strange for a digital group, but I really believe that in person, I have noticed it. The more you can get people in one room, the better off you are, because you have the whole package. You know what's going on. So the first thing we set out to do is, as you have done with your brand positioning and your brand values, is, have our own motto, our own, we talked about the Olympics and how you had this great cause where, what is it that puts us all together? What do we have in common? And for our team, what came up again and again, regardless of who they were, whether they were, again, in accounting or HR or admin or creative or technical, it was about pushing the envelope, a great amount of passion, making it better. We're like tinkerers. We're always trying to make it better. And so we came up with greater than, good is not good enough. We want to make things that are greater than they have any business being, right? And this has become everything for us. It's how we select our clients. Do they want greater than work? Do they have a great culture? This is how we hire. This is how we evaluate. This is how we fire. This is how we select our A players. We decided there were 5 values that got us to this greater than. Smarts is greater than intelligence, guts, craft, openness, solidarity. You don't need, to know. But this is really become our culture. This is what we're about. And so when we hire, what I have found again and again is like, you may need a skill when you're co-opting someone on your team, but do they fit the culture, right? And why is that so important? Because they're not going to work together. They're not going to collaborate if they don't fit the culture. So here we are. It's funny to put a photo of myself, but anyway. So the value of in-person interaction, I talked about that. Beg your HR department for more travel, more time together. It really works. I have seen a huge turnaround in my team when we've spent a lot of social time. So I really encourage you guys to do that. And then somebody, I think Dale talked about appreciation, like appreciating each other. And this is a new platform we created, and it's been amazing because you see all the fires that are being built and the team is engaged and there's a lot of peer recognition. And then breaking down coalitions, I talked about that, right? There are going to be coalitions. These are some of the super tactical things we tried, right? Okay, org chart, let's be fancy with our org chart. Let's break down the silos and flatten the organization. And then we're like, why don't we move all together? Which, by the way, was the most painful thing I have ever had to do, is move people from one desk to the other. But in the end, it was great because they got to see they were human too, and they had a lot in common. But nothing really works better than one incentive plan. If we're all, we just unveiled that, but if we are all rewarded equally for the work that we do as a team, it really kind of makes everyone feel valued. And also, it says that collaboration is more important than anything else in your organization. Okay, this is an intern, and she spent 3 months with us. And I love this. She wrote this blog, and this is my culminating moment of pride. No one told her anything. She just got it from working with us. And the way she wrote about Struck is exactly the strategic plan and our common culture. Exactly. 3 months. She's just an amazing person, right? But it makes me proud. It's like something is coming through, right? Something is happening. Okay, 2 last things and then I'm done. Get the most out of your limited resources. We talked about time and resources. Get out of the Balkans. Do you guys know what the Balkans are? Yeah. You're like, yeah, I do. Come on. Well, in the US, they were like, huh? What? But anyway, you have a strategic plan, and what you want to do is put your resources towards that strategic plan. You don't want to like get embroiled in things that have nothing to do with it, which are the Balkans, because it will cost you. It's not like you can do both. You don't have unlimited time. You don't have unlimited budget. So don't get lost in the Balkans, right? Don't do like Hitler and dedicate some of your resources to save Mussolini when you really should be on the Eastern Front fighting the Russians, right? That's what the Balkans are, for those who don't. And then pick the things, I love this because I'm so lazy, pick the things that will have the maximum impact. And what we found is that the maximum impact is going to come from leadership and from processes. So for instance, we realized that we were always over budget with our digital projects. And we decided, instead of changing leadership, that we were going to look at the process by which we scope these. And it worked. Changing the process can have a huge impact on the organization. And the same with your client relationship. So essentially understand that you have limited resources, and that's what your strategic plan is for prioritization. Go for the gold. And then valuing diversity, and I don't mean just different kind of discipline or gender, but I also mean different personalities, right? This is the standout test. I talk a lot about this, but I think the idea is that we all have our own superpower. And why don't we play to our own superpower? Wouldn't that make us more happy, more collaborative? It's like feeling like, yeah, I'm bringing in my unique contribution to this collaboration, to this team. So that's one thing. And then the last piece is breaking out of traditions. We live in an interesting world. Like I said, we've got the old guard, the advertising guard, and oh, well, surely you should be in the business 15 years before you're a creative director. Well, the results of that is that there's only 3% of women creative director in the United States and Canada. Only 3%. And that's wrong. That's wrong. And I believe it's because we tend to just hang on to old ideas about things, Well, I've never seen a woman creative director. So here's Alex. I will play the video. The reason why I want to introduce you to our only female creative director is to kind of say it works. She came on board. She had a background in filmmaking and not in advertising. And she essentially changed the account that she was assigned to entirely. And we just unleashed a campaign. This is for the state of Utah. And it has the greatest KPI we have ever had from a campaign. The level of happiness of the team is incredible. The client net promoter score satisfaction is unbelievable. And I believe it's a result of all of these efforts, but it's also a result of her coming up with different ideas, a different way of doing it. And that was really important for us, because otherwise there's so much unknown. When you have diversity of people, they may know the unknown that is unknown to you, right? So we'll play the video at the end, but just as a quick recap of everything I've been babbling on about. Strategy helps you with a diversity of stakeholders and perspective. Culture helps you with coalitions. Alignment of resources and prioritization of resources helps you with limited time and limited budget. And diversity helps you with the unknown. So those are the things that we've been experimenting with. Hopefully this has been kind of interesting for you. But I'm looking forward to talking to you later throughout the day about what you guys have been trying and what works and what doesn't work. So play this. Oh, and this is why I live in Utah.
Picture this, your next trip, Utah, 5 national parks. First, Zion. You're walking, the ground rises, the ground drops, the ground becomes water. Next, Bryce. You're riding a mule. You're riding a mule under giant orange drip castles. You are not dreaming. You will not forget this. On to Capitol Reef. Take the scenic route, the really scenic route. Take a path you've never taken and see the stars for the first time. Now for Canyonlands. You're riding a bike. You're riding a bike on Mars. Now you're riding the rapids. Class 2, Class 3, Class 4, Classic. Arches, 5:32 a.m. Some things are worth racing the sunrise for. The horizon lightens. You round the corner. Whoa. This is Life Elevated. The Mighty Five. 5 iconic parks, 1 epic experience. Plan your trip at visitutah.com.